We'll get rolling on camera, and we're all set, John.
You rolling?
And
Everybody's rolling. I'm going to roll this.
Okay.
A little bit of tester here.
You know, Phil always had this sense of composition in his playing, which overrides proper technique any day. Like Man on the Corner, you know, that was like, to the typical way you normally play the drum set, the beat was actually backwards, but it was brilliant, you know.
When you said playing back, the back, can you
Well,
demonstrate?
Well, Man on the Corner, you would normally think of a song like that going 2, 3, like, you know. That's all. And he went 2, 3, 4. And it just gave it this whole other, you know, with everything else that was going. I mean, I don't know of another song by anyone that does that, but it made it totally unique, and it worked. It's just absolutely right. I had to really literally count out loud sometimes to make sure I come in one. You know, I mean, obviously once we played it a few times, I was okay with it, but just things like that, you just don't get that, you know.
You just don't get that.
Just don't get that. I would.
So maybe let's have a little chat about what he just said. Thank you.
Well, everybody used to have a problem with In the Air Tonight and Man on the Corner, because the drum machine pattern that I'd programmed didn't seem to start in what sounded like to be the correct place. There was nothing on the first beat, and I think that Chester actually, in that description, by saying that I was playing things backward, I mean, albeit complimentary, I think actually had the drum machine thing backward because I was playing forward. It was like, you know, In the Air Tonight, for example, which is something that everybody knows, or most people know, as opposed to Man on the Corner, which is like 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, there's nothing on one apart from the. And if you kind of join it without knowing where the beginning is, you end up with the backbeat, you know, in a different place. And even fantastic musicians that play in my band have to kind of look at each other to make sure we're all on the same beat. I've lived with it and I wrote it, so it's a no-brainer for me. But a lot of people have mentioned that, and I kind of have let it go by because I don't, you know. To me, it's natural, but to other people, it has not been natural. And Man on the Corner, which is one. There's nothing on one. One. And if you don't think of one in the right place, then it does sound like I'm playing backwards, you know, or, you know, as imaginative as Chester described it. Because to me it was pretty straight ahead. But you know, I'm flattered if someone thinks that there's more going on than that. But I don't think there was. It's true that people do have to count out loud, but you know,
Maybe that's his point in a way, is that it's kind of you don't necessarily see it as unusual.
Unusual, yeah, yes, I see that, yeah.
It's just coming out of your, you know.
It's outside the box.
Chester was saying about your style, that you've got more of an edge.
Yeah, play loud. I mean, I know this sounds completely sacrilegious to any jazz drummer, and it doesn't say the right things to young kids learning to play, you know, just play loud. But that is the secret of my sound. I mean, and that is why I can get up and play a drum kit that I've never seen before. And people will say, wow, it sounds like you. Well, that's because of the way I play, you know, and I do tend to sort of, well, I'm playing that particular kind of thing. You know, if I was to play the In the Air Tonight riff, you know, I could play that on any drum kit and it would sound like the record. Because that style, a lot of it is in my technique, if you like, or lack of it. But, you know, obviously, I mean, I've played with all kinds of artists, and I've played some stuff with John Martin, which is very sensitive stuff, you know. So and I have drum kits for different occasions. The Genesis stuff, it tends to be the concert toms, which is one head, no head on the bottom. You know, you know, it sounds kind of like that, you know. And sometimes I'll bring out a drum kit with two skins on, and it will be like really leathery and mellow. So I tend to use drums for the occasion of what, you know, for who I'm playing with. But yeah, the thing that he mentions about me playing with one hand is just an attitude. You know, it's very difficult to teach, or you know, people that attitude. I mean, I've after Chester. I mean, I went back to Chester playing drums with my band, but I did have Ricky Lawson, who's now no longer with us, but I did have Ricky Lawson for a couple of tours. And he was fantastic. Played with Madonna, Michael Jackson, you know, do it. Everything was right every night. Tempos were always locked in, but, you know, Easy Lover, I was trying to teach him about the attitude of Easy Lover. And I said, the only way I can teach you how to, you know, or what's wrong with it, or what I'd like it to sound like, is if I sit down and play it. And I remember this, Chiddingfold Working Men's Club, we were rehearsing it, and I sat down at my drum kit, because it was always there for In the Air Tonight, and we just played it. And everyone started smiling, you know, like the band. And I was having a great time, but, you know, I was just playing these fills. You know, and it was just an attitude towards it. And it wasn't just hitting the tom-tom in the right places, it was really, you know, it was just kind of the way I would really like it played if it's possible. And but you know, Ricky's was a wonderful drummer. Chester is a wonderful drummer, and it kind of, we're talking about small things that probably only I would notice. But you know, it's difficult when you're a drummer and you have another drummer playing your parts. And this is what I said when I took over the singing with Genesis. You know, I've got to find someone that I'm not going to look around at all the time, and sort of be thinking about that when I'm trying to be thinking about what I'm doing. And we were lucky with Bill Bruford, and we've been lucky with Chester. You know, some of the stuff that we were doing when Chester joined, he came to rehearsals, and I'd say, well, you know, he'd be trying to learn what I'd done, and I remember saying to him, well, I'm just trying to play like an R&B drummer, so forget about my interpretation of it. Just play what you would normally play as an R&B drummer. And that kind of sorted some things out. But other things, like specific Ringo-y type fills, which he didn't really know what I was talking about, or John Bonham type grooves, you know, he wouldn't have necessarily known what I was talking about, because that wasn't part of his handwriting.
But presumably you went to Chester for another kind of sound as well, right?
I went to Chester, and the guys trusted me on this. We'd all liked Bill Bruford, and we all knew his work with Yes. And I don't think he'd been with King Crimson at that point, but certainly his work with Yes we all knew. Chester, I actually wasn't a huge fan of Chester in Weather Report. I loved the Weather Report to death, but my knowledge of Chester really was from Frank Zappa, and there was a track on the Roxy and Elsewhere live album which had him playing with Ralph Humphreys, 2 drummers, and there was this drum fill in this song called More Trouble Every Day, and it was da 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 da. And I said, boy, that sounds good. 2 drummers, going down the tom-toms. And they'd be kind of echoing each other. And so I said, this is the guy I want to play with. So he came over just purely on the strength of that drum riff. The other guys, I don't think, really knew. They thought that there was more to it than that. But I just wanted to play with the guy that did that drum fill. And we used to put that drum fill in everywhere. It's in Afterglow. It's in everywhere. Bit of Los Endos probably, but certainly at the end of Afterglow we do it. And we used to have a laugh doing it.
When Chester talked about playing the furniture,
Yeah.
Whether you could still tell the difference. It's kind of like
Yeah.
the feel thing. It strikes me that it's very much coming from personality. It's not something you can really teach.
No, I mean Chester is technically miles apart from me. Technically he sits there and plays in his natural habitat. When he's warming up or he's playing the sound check before we all start playing a tune. It's like, he plays this wonderful stuff that I could not do. Very intricate jazz, like he did with Weather Report. And and then it's like, okay, back on your heads, and he's technically far superior to me. I have an attitude to it, playing what stuff I play, and when we sit, we've always done the drum duets together. And we've always done them at the last minute. Somewhere in a 6-week rehearsal period, we've always done it in the last week of rehearsals. And I'll say, listen, we really should do this if we're going to have this thing in the show. So, he'll come to my room, and or I'll go to his room, and we'll sit on a stool each or a chair each with a chair in the middle, and we'll play and we'll record it, and then we'll listen back to it, and we'll edit it and put it together, and that's what you'll hear. Well, in Brussels, when we were rehearsing for the last Genesis reunion thing, there was a great leather stool in my room, and we were playing on that, and it really did sound good. And of course, when you've got something that sounds good, you play to the sound. So you. And actually, this is on as an extra on the When in Rome DVD. But it was quite extraordinary. After all these years playing together, we could follow each other, and it would sound like it was written, but it wasn't. It was just following each other. I'd do something, he'd do something, then we'd do something together. And then we started on this humorous kind of search for a stool, which because this one was so special, but it wouldn't have lasted the tour. I mean, it was getting marked up in the room. We're all trying to work out how to get the stick marks off it. But it was. I had this idea that maybe why don't we do this? This is what we've always done. It's a reunion tour. It's like, show people how we did this. So we got a couple of stools. In fact, I think we played on one in the end, but we had to find the right one. They had to keep going out and buying different stools, to make it one that sounded good, which is the one we used in the end. But yeah, I mean, it was. Yeah, so those things with me and Chester was always the highlights of the show to me. And I think maybe it's because they changed, they developed. Sometimes it's difficult to change something you've been playing 40 years. People don't want you to play it that differently. you know. And sometimes there's only one way to play it. Inside your own part, you'll play different things, but you know, it's not something that you can blues around with it. You know, it's a composition, and it's a bit like asking an orchestra to go there and just, you know, play 1812 overture, but just play around with it. Don't play the notes. Just you know, get the gist of it. Well, you can't. You do what's written. You know. So, and I'm sure that with Chester coming from a jazz background, and that's his natural place, he would have found that a little different. Bill Bruford found it very difficult, and he would, you know, just out of bloody-mindedness, he would play different fills, you know. And of course there was some grey area. I mean, I understand this from a drummer's point of view. You know, there's some things you don't have to play the same, but some things are written cues. They help Tony know where we are. They help Mike know where they are, where he is rather. But it's difficult for a drummer, in the same way that it's difficult for a drummer to do nothing but the same thing. Like The Intruder, for example. You know, it's difficult for drummers to do that. They get bored and they want to put a little bit of something in. And the same thing with playing a piece of music every night the same. It's a boredom factor. Unless you're the guy that wrote it, in which case you understand why it's got to be the same.
Thanks so much for coming from far
Right.
away.
Nothing else on.
1970.
Just like yesterday.
You said 1970.